Good morning, everyone. I am Preston Steele,
I'm Evan King.
and welcome to Deep Dives and Long Passes, the NFL and all the controversy that surrounds it and such. And this morning, we will be talking about a very, very um, wild card, I guess you could say, of the league, Mr. Antonio Brown this morning.
Oh yeah, great football player.
Good player indeed. Was for one of the longest time was one of those guys that like you had to look out for on the field before all of his issues arose. But I remember back when the Steelers were real good around the mid 2010s, whatnot. When they had Ben Roethlisberger and Le'Veon Bell and all those great players. Antonio Brown was like their main receiver and was like one of their big weapons on that Steelers team that was so dangerous if you left him open, or even when you tried to guard him, with just such a dangerous wide receiver to have to, attempt to guard.
Yeah, and he had a certain type of confidence about it too. He was definitely a cocky football player because because he knew he was good. He had a swagger, like a bravado that everybody knew when they came to watch him play.
Most definitely, he definitely had that kind of swagger to him, and he uh, he was with the Steelers for the longest, and 2010 2018 he was with the Steelers, and he was, very good, all through that time period up until I believe it was, I don't remember exactly which season it was when he had a hit was laid on him, and that hit is really what hurt him. A lot of people say that that is where the CTE began, and that's where a lot of like his troubles began off the field was about that time. And let me see if I can find that. But that was a huge issue for him because that was kind of the it knocked him out. That was kind of the turning point, I guess you could say, in his career. And so that's where a lot of trouble started for him.
Yeah, I mean we all know by now that CTE and brain swelling, things like that are no joke. I mean, it's not just football either. You see it in wrestling and rugby. You see it in hockey. I mean, it's a regular issue with physical contact related sports.
Mm-hmm. Um, Looks like it was maybe 2016 in the it was a wild card game against the Bengals for sure. Maybe 2006. Yeah, January 9th, 2016. Um, so, a good 6 years into his career when this happens, and the hit, I don't know if you ever heard of Vontez Burfict. Vontez Burfict was the guy that hit him, and that's been one of the guys in the NFL that's been known to, put some dirty hits on some people every now and then.
Oh wow.
And so, obviously, when that happened, a lot of people weren't surprised that the hit came from Burfict. And, but that's like it's a very, big moment for the Steelers during that game. Obviously, wide receivers taken out, and it was from this point that Antonio Brown's mind started to change. Like, we saw him begin to do some things on the field that just didn't mirror what we had seen before when he was playing in Pittsburgh. And you'd seen him throw some temper tantrums almost. You had just seen him it's like his emotions had changed, and it was like he was just, kind of a different person and whatnot. It was very weird to see.
Yeah, and he just slowly but surely started becoming volatile. He started getting angrier and angrier and causing
Hmm.
issues with his own teammates. And I mean, and after a while, you started seeing him on the news. It didn't just stop there. It was sort of like a slow a slow build. Like you noticed little things, piling up, and then after a while, it became a an issue that brought legal action into it. I mean, it's definitely there are definitely things on his track record now that don't reflect his best qualities.
Yeah, and we saw him. I believe it was 2018. Yes, the Steelers had traded him to the Oakland Raiders, and he actually at this point in 2019, when he signed with the Raiders, became the highest paid receiver in the league. But his time there in Oakland was short lived. Obviously, there was quite a few incidents, um, quite a few incidents with him off the field, including a confrontation with the Browns general, or not the Browns. Um, sorry, Brown. His last name's throwing me off. With the Raiders general manager Mike Mayock is his name. Yes. Um, Obviously, and before he even played a game, um, a regular season game with the team, they had released him, and so obviously he went from being the highest paid player in the league to all of a sudden he's out of a job within a week, and so obviously that's it's a pretty big deal.
Oh, most definitely. He and even when even with him being traded uh to a new team, even his new teammates, everyone was just starting to notice a mental decline. Even with
Oh,
his expensive contract, I mean, he was not he just was not acting right. Lots of people talked about how he was verbally, abusive, and noticed that he didn't treat the sport like a a team oriented sport anymore. It was like it was all about him, and he would just say out of pocket stuff. And before you know it, of course, after a few years of that, came the sexual assault allegations and rape allegations that uh, to this day probably tarnishes his record more than anything.
yeah, and after he was cut by the Raiders, he kind of made a somewhat of a comeback in his career. He signed with New England after that, and Tom Brady was one of those guys who could like revive some people's career, kind of like Nick Saban did in college. Tom Brady could kind of do that for the NFL, and so I do truly believe that Tom Brady kind of helped. Now, obviously, he caught a touchdown pass from Brady in the one game that he played with New England, but he was cut. I'm going to say I think it was like not too long after the game he was cut, which they were investigating the sexual assault allegations that were made, and so obviously he was still trying to fight that and whatnot. Um, he was a free agent for the rest of 2019 and the beginning of 2020, and he ended up signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he actually won a Super Bowl with them when they beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And everybody was like, okay, maybe he's got a chance now to like kind of revive his career, and he'll be okay and whatnot, and everything will be just kind of back to normal for him. Because obviously the fans of him and the fans of the NFL and whatnot, they don't want to see him fail. They'd like to see him get a good career and really, be able to keep playing in the league for a while after they had watched him, grow up and play in the league for so long. But unfortunately, he got into some kind of altercation when he was playing for the Buccaneers the next season. And I don't know exactly what happened. I don't know if it was between a player or coach, but Antonio Brown, mid game, took off his uniform, cleats, everything, and ran across the end zone of the field holding up a peace sign, and that was it for him. He ended up walking off the field, and he he never came back, and he never played another down of football from that point on. That was the end of his career for him.
And I remember seeing videos of that. Yeah, those videos were everywhere of him leaving, and he was so popular. You saw his jerseys on lots of even down here in Tennessee. I mean, dude, you saw people wearing his jersey,
Oh
all
yeah,
over the
dude,
place. He was
100%.
really popular, and
100.
but you just it like we said earlier, it was just a slow build of little things, and then these really big no nos started happening on his part, and you had like sexual assault and threatening people, and there were prostitutes who came out and said that like he never paid them, like they would do their thing and he would just not pay them, and then threaten them into not telling people. And he um he got uh he got charged with burglary and battery uh in Florida, which it just keeps stacking up. I mean, you hear about people getting into the occasional scuffle with anybody. I mean, it happens. It happens with police officers. I mean, occasionally you hear about prostitute issues and gambling, but with
Yeah.
Antonio Brown, it's one of those situations where you can't help but ask yourself, what's next? Like, how, what is this guy going to do next? That it wasn't like some of the players we've talked about where they have a few major things on their track record that make them disliked. I mean, with Antonio Brown, it's like all of these things started stacking up and leading up to, like you said, him leaving the NFL entirely.
Yeah, and on top of that, like, somewhat after he got out, like, they thought like he might get out and try to make like a useful name for himself off of the football field. I don't know. A lot of people expect like when a lot of those football players retire, a lot of them end up going and a lot of them end up going and like becoming like analysts and these anchors on these different sports networks. And a lot of people kind of really thought that that might happen for Brown as well. But I mean, it became very clear that Brown was just not much of a stable man anymore. Like it was very difficult for him to, it was very difficult for him to function properly and whatnot. And I mean, you saw these different outbursts that, not just from the field now, obviously, you see, he's got his social media pages, and all of a sudden, he is all of a sudden he is now in he is in these different you know organizations and what with a bunch of different social media platforms, and you see him just acting out on social media, and people just they're wondering what all is going on, and so and obviously you see the issues he's had with the women and the child payment and whatnot. But then in August 29th of 2023, he finally come out and said that his behavior had stemmed from his issues of battling CTE, which is chronic traumatic. I don't even know how you know, insa. I can't say this word. Encephalopathy. So I just like, I mean, everybody knows what CTE is without really having to say the
Yeah.
word and whatnot. But like CTE, the very serious issue. It's been found, they started doing studies around the mid 2000s about CTE within NFL players. And, it's kind of started to progress like more and more. And, because reporters started calling him crazy and whatnot, and Brown didn't like that. But the CTE is really getting to him, and obviously it's causing him to act out and do all these you know silly things. But and it's just sad to see an NFL player end up in that kind of a situation. Like you never want to see that happen. Like you always want, especially if you're like a favorite player, you really want him to do very well. But man, it's just a tough look to see all that going on, and he's still, from what I know today, um, he from what I know today, he still tweets out. I don't follow him on any social media pages or anything, but he he still tweets out and kind of acts a little strange on the social media pages. It just kind of puts out some weird things, and so it'll be you know it's just sad to see it still going on like this today. But there's not much we can do about it.
No, it's yeah, while he isn't he's not active on the field anymore. He's very active with his thumbs on the keyboard. He loves to tweet out weird stuff, and he's still just sort of that same volatile person, just doesn't have much of a filter, and is seems like he has a knack for just starting altercations.
Yeah.
And he there a lot of his issues, what it seems to me like the CTE, the brain swelling did of course affect him and probably still does. But even before that, he he was a wild dude. There's no doubt in my mind that he already liked to party and act like a nut job. But when you have someone that's like that, already sort of eccentric, sort of wild, once your brain starts swelling, it's gonna get worse and worse. Because in every league of professional sports, you have those wild cards, those crazy people. I mean, one of my favorite players in the NBA has always been Dennis Rodman, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's like you take someone like him and then add CTE. It's like, imagine what Dennis Rodman would have acted like with CTE. He was already like a wild dude, one of just the wildest people in the league. And yeah, you include CTE, it's gonna get weird. It's gonna get shady, and because like you said, there's nothing we can do, and there's truly no way to know what exactly went through Antonio's head whenever he supposedly did those things to those women and assaulted the people that he supposedly assaulted. But we do know that, of course, actions speak louder than words, so they say, and his actions on the field were speaking pretty loud. I mean, he was not acting the way you would expect someone who's getting paid that much to be a football player. You wouldn't expect someone like, you don't want to see someone act like that. And it's always good
Oh
to have some drama. It sort of helps the sales. It helps to have the occasional spackle between players. It helps to sell it a little bit, and but sometimes it's obvious that there's just a bad apple on a team, and after a while, it looked like Antonio Brown was officially that one of those bad apples.
yep. Unfortunately, so that's unfortunately how it is. But so I believe now we can go ahead and put in our advertisement, talk about the games for a minute. So this episode is brought to you by Thursday Night Football. This Thursday Night Football, we have a great matchup of the Cincinnati Bengals at the Baltimore Ravens, and Bengals with a 4-5 record this year. Ravens at 6-3. Ravens have been a really dominant team. Of course, obviously adding Derrick Henry in the offseason was a very, very big pickup. I'm sure a lot of Tennessee Titans fans were not very happy about that. But, obviously, I think this will be a pretty good matchup. I don't think it'll just be a blowout. But, of course, as you can tell, the Ravens have got the edge here in this situation. They've got what I would say is the MVP candidate in Lamar Jackson at the quarterback, along with Derrick Henry, and they've got a very nice star-studded offense, along with a good defense as well. I think they're just a well-rounded team. The Bengals, even though they've got Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, they're still struggling to find their niche this year. I don't really know where that's at right now. I don't know what all they've got to do to get that figured out. But I mean, this late in the season, they're sitting at the 3 spot, I believe, in their division, and it's pretty tough to see a team that has got plenty of all stars on it that are struggling as bad as they are right now. But that's just you got to hope that the team figures it out. Like that's just not something you've got much effect over. And but regardless, I think it will be a good game tomorrow night because you never know with an offense as good as I know the Bengals are capable of, they could very easily pop up tomorrow night and give the Ravens a run for their money. Possibly even beat the Ravens too. We never really know, but I think
Yeah.
that'll be a very good game. So it'll be on Amazon Prime Video tomorrow night. But I think it'll be a very very interesting game to watch.
Oh yeah, and the Bengals were always one of my favorite teams growing up, but I still love Baltimore, just the history of the team. So while deep down I kind of would like to see the Bengals take the game, it wouldn't matter to me. It was sort of the same thing with the World Series with baseball. Literally, my two favorite teams in the history of the sport were playing each other. So it's like, man, whoever wins, I'll be happy. It doesn't matter too much to me.
Oh yeah, and see, I mean, I completely understand what you mean there. I was kind of the same way with the World Series as well. I'm not a huge just baseball guy, but like I've got a friend that's been a Yankees fan his whole life. My
Yeah,
brother was a Dodgers fan growing up. So like, man, like either one of them to win, it'd be pretty good. But what's really blowing me away about this game is, I knew the Ravens had like a huge, huge offense, but I decided to take a look into the actual statistics and like see what's going on. So as far as offense goes, man, Ravens are sitting first in the NFL, no issues whatsoever. Like they're sitting first. That's not an issue in the world for them. Now their defense is down in 24th, which is not very good. But when you got first offensive lead, they're first in rushing and second in passing. I mean, that is a top tier offense right there. You have to just, I mean, it's about as best as you can get. I mean, that's incredible.
yeah. I I'll probably end up watching this game this Thursday. Well, tomorrow technically. Um, but yeah, I mean, like I said, I would personally speaking, I would like to see the Bengals, creep up and take it, but it it wouldn't affect me too much if Baltimore won as well. I'm okay with both teams.
Yeah, and it's not, that's definitely not like a bad possibility to happen at all. Like Joe Burrow, the Bengals are sitting fifth in passing in the NFL right now, which is not bad at all. But I mean, when you got a quarterback like Joe Burrow, that's completely like expected. I just think their rushing, obviously, they're down at 26th, and so their rushing is a little rough, and their defense is 22nd. So obviously, they're struggling on a couple more sides of the ball. But hey, like I said, when you got a quarterback like Joe Burrow, you never know what the offense can come out and do. And I really think it's going to be a really good high powered game. I think that a couple of guys that you probably need to watch for is definitely Joe Burrow. I'd say Lamar Jackson as well, and Derrick Henry. I would I would also watch for Zay Flowers on the receiving end for Baltimore the other night or tomorrow night. I feel like Zay Flowers can definitely be one to catch a touchdown. The last meeting between these two teams was just a few weeks ago, and Baltimore won 41-38. So obviously, you got a high scoring shootout game right there. That is going to be that's going to be absolutely, I think, another huge factor. And tomorrow night will be the two high scoring offenses that I expect us to see. I really figure that that'll be huge for that tomorrow night. I don't expect the defense to just make a huge statement themselves, but I do expect the offenses to be really good.
Yeah, yeah, but I see what you mean. That did seeing that score from the last time they played on here, that does give me some hope that it'll at least be a great football game. No matter who wins, it'll be fun to just watch them butt heads.
Oh yeah, definitely going to be a really good game without a doubt. So, well, I believe our time is up for today. So I am Preston Stegall.
And I'm Evan King.
We want to thank you for joining, and we hope you tune in next week.
Yep. And don't forget to watch the football game.
Amen. There you go.